to support the charges. Considering the relevant factors and the charges, he is ordered held without bond.
This is the moment a 16-year-old broke down in court after being denied bond for the murder of another teen. Sean Simpson is being charged under a new law that allows 16 and 17-year-olds to be charged as adults. He's accused of fatally shooting 16-year-old Zaquavius Dawkins, who was running errands for his mother when he was hit 3 times in the back. Simpson also tried to end the life of the victim's friend who was injured during the attack. The victim's grandmother...
Like, come on, man. You gotta understand, I'm 17, y'all finna put me in jail for a murder charge. I'm never gonna see the light of day again. Like, y'all, you wouldn't each
your parents. Okay? Okay? I don't know how things gonna turn out for you. I ain't got no idea how nothing gonna turn out. No idea at all. Okay, I had to tell.
Welcome to the Sit Down. I'm your man, Rod Love. I'm one of your hosts for the Sit Down, and I'm just glad to introduce Sister Wynn. How you doing this evening?
I am doing well. And yourself?
I'm doing great. I'm doing
Right.
excellent. And also, we have Doc Polite, and I want to call Doc our resident. Doc just gets so cranial on the psyche part of this, and so I'm gonna give him his props for that. But we got Doc Polite that's beaming in as well. Doc, how you doing, man?
Okay!
See, hey, that soundboard.
I did that for Miss Queen right there. Miss Wynn.
Hey, got that soundboard going on.
Yeah, I had her cracking up before the show. Man, I'm doing good. I'm excited because I'm getting ready to go out the country.
Don't say it. Don't say it. Don't say it.
And
Hey, for your security, don't say it.
Yeah. Oh,
Hey,
man, I got cameras. I got security people gonna be here, so I ain't worried about it.
All right. Hey, but you know what? We're continuing our conversation, and that conversation has a lot to do with what we've come to the consensus that, man, young people and the things that are taking place out in communities that we sit back and we say, man, another young person's life is unfortunately not over. But man, when you hear about these young people getting sentences of 30 years and 25 years,
Charged as an adult.
charged as an adult, and for some heinous crimes. I mean, I'm not sitting back defending these young people and what they did, because in society we got to have rules. But that's what this conversation is all about. How can we help parents? How can we help communities? But how, most importantly, can we help these young people?
You know what? That's the $1 million question of how to help these youth before they get to that point. We do have a lot of different organizations around, mentoring organizations to help the young men, but I think it needs to come more so from the parent household as well. Don't put your child on a mentor and think that mentor is going to change your child's life.
You're right. You're right. But you know what? Here's the other hook. And Doc, I want you to chime in on this as well. I think there's a whole lot of moving parts to this. Family, of course, as you mentioned, is one. I also believe personal accountability is another.
Absolutely.
But we got a lot of things that's going on in communities that are doing good work. But here's the hook. When we talk about doing good work don't come in volume.
Exactly.
You hear what I say, Doc?
Say that again now.
Good work is not about the volume.
Right.
Good work is about results-based accountability. Good work is about, if you're serving 100 people, how many of that 100 that actually got what you was trying to give them?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So you know, we showed, and Doc, I want to thank you, man, for setting up and going out and researching and pulling real life events. But we're showing that for a reason. We're showing that so that we can get through to not only parents, not only fathers or father figures or mothers that's struggling with their children. We're showing it so that young people can see too. What you see on the streets with the machoism and things of that nature, when you're in that box, it's different.
Yeah. This is not a roadblock game.
That's it.
You know, and the thing to me is that there is a very present disconnect between these juveniles, these problematic juveniles, and their parents. When you have to look at what is going on at home, what kind of supervision, accountability, and activities are going on in that home that this child can freely move about, roam, and do this kind of stuff. You know, we look at the young man sitting there and his grandmama telling him she don't know what she can do.
Mhm.
But what went on in that home? What goes on in that family? What family dynamics contributed to that? People try to dismiss it. Oh, you know, these kids, they're gonna go out there and do what they want to do. No, they won't. That is absolutely not true. And we want to have no
Doc, pull your mic closer to you.
we don't want parents to have any accountability in many instances because we socially we try to give them a pass, but it absolutely is incumbent upon parents to be there, know where their child is, know what they're up to, and have a plan for them.
Okay, Doc, let's break down what you just said because, and I'm glad you did it the way you did it because there's two spectrums to this. One, you got parents that are doing all that they can do, and it's a title for that, and that's ungovernable children.
Okay, let's break this down. Okay.
Then the other, but I'm saying you broke it down. There's two spectrums. You got parents who are doing all that they can do, but they have children that's ungovernable. I mean, it happens. You know, you got people that sit back and say, "Oh no, I tear his behind up," and you can't wait till they get 13, 14, and talk about you. It's not gonna happen. But then the other side of the spectrum is those parents that are not attentive, that are not saying you will and you won't do this. That is when we talk about parental accountability. So you got two ends of the spectrum here, Doc.
Well, I think one of it is it continues to be the social, the lack of social accountability on parents. I really think that's the key.
Well, even to add to that,
well,
I
because
think a lot
okay,
of it is
in your house, who's responsible?
Kids, and they're still a child themselves, but they want to be the adult.
Well, and you got that, and so if you got kids raising kids, you don't get a playbook. You don't go through a training on that. But
they come from your upbringing.
It comes from your upbringing, but it's still two sides of this doggone nickel, if you would. One are those young parents doing what they need to do, and this child is still ungovernable. Then the other side of the coin, we can go ahead and say, are they not doing anything? Which then goes back to what Doc is saying, the accountability. Yeah. So you got to balance it. It's two. It's not one or the other. It's both.
Okay, so why is there such a correlation between juvenile crime and single parenting?
And I'm gonna tell you, you asked the question, and this is my perspective. I think that the success trajectory of children goes down when you're in a single family household. I'm not saying that it's terrible to have a single family household, because there's some situations that when you have that father or that husband in this abusive situation, then yeah, it's not a good environment for a two-parent household. So I'm not vilifying a single-parent household, because a single-parent household can also be the father with his children. Everybody had a mentality.
Well, that's why I said single-parent household, and those kids get in trouble too.
Say that again, Doc.
I said that's why I said single-parent household, because kids who with just the father, they get in trouble as well. Okay, because the dad doing his thing, and he's not paying attention to them. They get out there and they get into stuff.
So if we talk in
me,
research,
it's about, see, I don't know. I always think in terms of there is a best case scenario for everything. All right. There's a design, an intentional design for every system. And whenever you break the intentional design or you do a modification, you're going to get results that you hadn't planned on. And often what we're looking at is the re-engineering of what it means to be a family outside of what works. And one of the things I want to point out too, because there's this myth in the Black community, and if you do the research, you will find out it's not true. And that is that we had these strong family bonds when we came out of slavery, and that's not necessarily true. Some things were just simply people were thrown together just for survival. They were in survival mode.
but Doc, let me ask you this, because these are the kind of conversations I love to have, because it challenges us. I mean, iron sharpening iron. If we want to go back and look at empirical data, and if we're talking it from a cultural standpoint, and you know, Doc brought up the Black family, and I'm gonna go with that. But there's no way you can tell me that the Black family wasn't stronger as a unit in the 70s in comparison to where it is right now.
Yeah.
You know, and if you look at the Black family in the 70s, you had a higher propensity of there being a two-family household than what you see now. And so I'm simply saying this. I'm not saying a young person is doomed for tragedy if they're coming out of a one person household. I'm not saying that. But I am saying that the trajectory of a child or children in a two-person household or two-parent household, the trajectory for that child is much higher than it is with one parent.
Yes.
Simply put.
Yeah. I look at it as I used to always say a Bonnie and Clyde at my house. Because my mom was the easy one, but my dad was that strong. That was like, oh, man, go get me the bill. I'm like, oh, no, not again. But it taught me what I need to,
because they worked as a team. Even though it was Bonnie and Clyde, they still worked together as a
Bonnie
team.
and Clyde was something serious.
Okay, so how? Okay, so I'm looking at statistics in the 70s. You say, right? 64% of Black men and 72% of Black women were married.
Say that again.
64% of Black men and 72% of Black women were married.
Okay, so what is it today?
And 30% who were unmarried. Now,
what is it today?
What does that mean, huh?
What is it today?
Oh, it's far less than that.
And we see
it's far less
more,
than that.
We see more engagement with young people. We see more tragedy with young people, and so it's you haven't been making a case.
I think that we conflate being married with healthy households, and just because people were married in the 70s doesn't mean it was.
Hey, Doc, I'm gonna get you on something. I'm gonna get you on something because you would have got me on this too if you would have caught me on this. And that is, Doc, I never said married household. I've repeated myself with a two-parent household.
No, because what I'm saying is a lot of people equate the two-parent household with marriage. You understand what I'm saying? Most people think when they're talking about the two-parent household, they're talking about the mother and the father are married.
My mom and dad was never married.
But that's not what that's not what I'm relating to. Even though I do believe in the institution of marriage, that's not where I'm coming from.
Okay, so
so what Rodney Daly say? Put an emphasis back on getting these. Okay, I think, Doc. I was straining my eyes. And let me say something about Rodney Daly first and foremost. Here's a brother who, Doc, he worked in the same field as us back in the day. And Rodney was the kind of cat that didn't take no nonsense. He was a probation officer for juveniles.
Wow.
And those kids learned more from Rodney doing his job as an adult male, as a father figure, but because Daly didn't take no BS, they also learned from a disciplinarian.
Yep.
And so Rodney says, put an emphasis back on getting these kids involved with activities such as Boys and Girls Club, summer programs, basketball, baseball, all that kind of stuff. And he says, yes, more money would have to be infused in these programs to make it more affordable for parents to afford, especially in the times we're living in right now.
Yeah.
And then also tie some of these incentives to parents that participate in these programs. Man, Rodney, you need to be on this show because I'm breaking this.
And you know what?
But finish, Doc. Let's finish. Okay, yes, things are tight, and our government is trying to do away with programs for minority communities.
Yeah.
However, if we work collaboratively together, we can get this done.
So how do we work together? Because everybody wants to be.
And that's just, and he said that's just my opinion. But listen, he's on to something. But I want to say this: it's not just minority kids. This is what's going on in rural areas as well. When you go through Palatka and these little towns like that, you see the same thing taking place with those kids.
Yeah.
That's taking place in the city. So it's a certain segment, and we got to get out of that.
So Doc, let me ask you this question. Where do you see the majority of your perk walks, or do you see those perk walks taking place in rural communities, or do you see those perk walks taking place in urban communities?
Well, in Polk County is equal opportunity. Ivy too. Where's Chef Wayne Ivy at? What county is that?
He's in Brevard County.
Okay, same thing.
But you know what? And see, me and Doc gonna get into this because in Brevard County, and Rodney Daly just started this. But now Doc gonna make me dive in. In Brevard County, while some people think it's a rural community, Brevard County has some major in Titusville, in some of your more urban areas. Yeah,
Titusville is still very rural. You got
your urban areas, Doc, and when you say Polk County, Polk County, who is the sheriff in Polk County? No, that's Sheriff JD. Judge. Yeah, who don't play the radio.
Exactly.
You know.
Come through if you want.
He said, hey, you know what? I'll never forget Sheriff Judge. You know, there was something that took place years ago, and you know, I just go ahead and say I support law enforcement that's doing their job. I mean, everybody knows.
I know what you're talking about. When they asked him why they shot him, shot him 96 times.
I support law enforcement that do their job, but I also support law enforcement leaders who hold their officers and deputies to a standard, accountable.
Yep.
JD, Sheriff Judge, there was a guy who pulled the gun on law enforcement. Doc, this was years ago, and you know where I'm going.
Yeah.
And I don't know, Doc, how many times did they shoot him?
96.
96 times. And when they asked the sheriff, why did they shoot him?
Why did they stop 96 times? He say, because they ran out of bullets.
Ran out of ammunition.
If they had some more, they would have shot him.
Yeah. And you know, somebody losing a life, I mean, we're not, you know, taking it lightly, but man, this is somebody who pulled the gun on law enforcement.
Well, you know, down there they had a major, and I was working that region then when I worked with the healthcare company, and they had one of the officers killed. They had a manhunt going on, and the guy killed the officer and the dog.
And Doc, if you would, man, because we got some real good input tonight. Can you blow up that Robert Hector? Okay, Rodney Daly is right, but those programs don't exist anymore because technology is what we feed our kids. Now, see, these guys are chiming in, bringing iPads and cell phones are not a norm. So Robert Hector, Daly, and anybody else watching, how do we move those kids from in front of the TV, from in front of their smartphones?
Yeah.
How do we get them back in the day where, man, our parents made us get out there whether it's kickball, football,
Make
or
up your own.
do something.
Yeah.
Something
Let-
and just
let-
come in before the street lights. You
Let
out
me
there
tell you.
all day.
Let me tell you, Rodney and Robert, if y'all can figure out how to get them kids off the phone, y'all gonna be some rich men.
You're right.
Y'all
You're
gonna be
right.
some rich men.
And now
I-
it's really
listen.
finna go up because it's the summertime.
It's the summertime. You're
It's
right.
the summertime.
Listen.
They're gonna be glued to those devices.
My youngest granddaughter is 2, and she gets that phone when I was up there. Hey, I put my phone down, and instantly she hidden trying to get into it, and I'm like, well, no.
Hey, but you know something? You know, Rodney and you know, we got 2 R's, Rodney and Robert. But these are guys who used to get out there and go engage those parents, go engage those young people. And you know, we have a responsible fatherhood initiative that is operated by Florida Economic Consortium. But the other piece of that is everybody don't have to be a biological father. And the truth be told, some biological fathers, they ain't worth their salt. But we got father figures out there that these are the guys, when we were growing up in our neighborhoods, we saw how they carried themselves and we respected to the extent that those grown men took an interest in, hey, what you doing walking around in school time? Hey.
Oh yeah.
We need those back.
Yeah.
We need
Hey,
those back.
that bicycle, I remember Miss Fannie Mae buying you that bike. Where you get that bike from?
Yep.
You know?
We got more comments.
But you know, this is the kind of dialogue. Go ahead, Miss Wynn. Because he's gonna have me straight in my eyes.
Robert, I agree, bro, but we can get them back going and incorporate new technology, financial literacy. We have that coming up, job training, etc. If you can come up with some dollars, volunteer scholarship to try to take things back to the days when these things are happening. Again, yes.
It's a tall task.
Task.
The one thing
That's
I disagree with my brother Rodney Daly, and this is a good thing for us. Iron sharpens iron. We don't always have to agree with. We know we want to go. We don't have to agree how we get there. But one of the things, and pull that back up, Doc, that Rodney said, I saw some. Okay, when Rodney said the piece about come up with some dollars. Well, this is the part that I agree with my brother that I love. I disagree with coming up with some dollars. When we talk about these traditional organizations that have been in our community, and I'm not going to take anything away from them, and I'm not going to mention the names because I think they're needed. But these organizations are multi-million-dollar organizations that are in communities of color that they're still getting money. I ain't knocking them, but we don't need to be going out there coming up with some dollars. We don't need to be doing no fish fries and this and that to come up with some dollars when your tax dollars should be going back into these communities. The fact that it costs more money to incarcerate a person than it does with putting that money out there for prevention and intervention. I will say the problem is this, and Rodney and Eck, they understand this and they can agree. And Miss Wynn, you and Doc, y'all been with me. It ain't about going around telling people you serving hundreds of kids. It's about showing how effective you are with the ones you're serving. So if you serve 100, how many out of that 100 can we follow and say these got both? They went and got a vocational skill. They got, they got good jobs. These went on to college. These, and I'm gonna just tell you, I'm sick and tired of the bureaucracy that we see in government. I'm plain and simple. Sick and tired of, and so somebody would say, how do you fix it?
Yes.
Well, government is a means to an end. Our tax dollars go there. But what we're finding now locally, our government is telling us how to do what we do. No, regulate me. Make sure I'm being accountable about the tax dollars that we spend. But don't come and tell me how we can reach the community when your ass so far away from it that they don't even.
Yourself. That is true. That is true. As Dr. Nelson would say, that accountability, we need to know, is that child better off?
Is that child better off? So Doc, don't get quiet on us now.
No, I ain't getting quiet. I'm doing something.
What X say? X just
Now,
X,
let me say this. Let me say this because oftentimes what we skip over in the process is the economic aspect of all these things. So I like to think creatively, creative community building. So I just looked at some numbers now in Pine Hills, and I'm pick on Pine Hills because I used to live there. I lived there a long time, and I was very active in that community. But one of the things is that we tend to think in terms of big money when you can do a lot with $1 every month. Now, it's 82,000 people live in Pine Hills. That just say for kicks and giggles, we get 100% participation. That gives us almost $1 million in money if everybody gave $12 a year to a community fund. Now, what would you do with that almost $1 million? What could you do?
are you asking me? What would I do with it?
Yeah.
Okay, here's what I would do because I believe in sustainability. I believe in capacity building. What the first thing I would do with that $1 million, I'm going to look at how do I budget so that this money can continue to cycle what I want, what my intentions. A couple of things that I would do. I would look at what type of programs that we can actually attract these young men and young women that come into the door that is going to capture their attention. You know, a lot of times we talk about things that we want to do to attract kids, but we don't find out what they want. So one of the things is I would find out what attracts them to get in the door. But then what I would also do is look at a portion of that $1 million for my business development. How do I attract other people to invest?
I'm glad you went there because that's what I was going to say. You take a majority of that, you hire an agency that will advocate and go out there and find funding for you. Okay, so basically you getting a what do you call the people, a lobbyist. You're going to get somebody that can do some lobbying and get out there and get you more funds.
But Doc, you know where we start first?
Because that's what happens in other neighborhoods. Those neighborhood associations, they go out there and they will get an agency to go out and find them funds. And it's a secret game.
Hey, Doc, and I don't mean, you know me, man, I'm gonna do sword play all day. When you say other neighborhoods, you ain't got
the only sword in the room.
Iron sharpens iron around here. But when you say other neighborhoods, see, I don't have time for this pity patty stuff that we used to do. When we talk about other neighborhoods don't experience the level of service calls for law enforcement than particular communities of color. And when I talk about accountability, you can only go so long in pacifying and giving excuses about why is crime so high, why is calls for service with law enforcement so high. Well, the community got to get its arm around it too.
Yes.
I tell you, one of the things that I had to grow out of is when I was a commissioner. I would go and join these community cleanups and walking around the community picking up trash in communities. And then as I'm having conversation with the people that I'm picking up trash with, I'm asking them, how long you been living in this neighborhood? I'm asking just some simple questions. And then I find out none of them live in the neighborhood. And I'm sitting back thinking to myself, where are the people who live in the neighborhood out here picking up trash with us? Hey, here goes something from Robert Eckner. Rod, at the end of the day, we've lost this generation to technology. I see it every day. Those grandmothers and grandfathers are now club mothers. They would not let a village helper. Hey, Doc, I wasn't prepared for that. I wasn't prepared for that. Yeah.
Hey, Robert Eckner, you are not lying.
Hey, Doc, you hear what he say? They're club mothers. man. I mean, it's telling the truth.
Hey, you see them all on TikTok and Granny getting her groove on and shaking. She bent over and man, listen, I just think about my grandmother, and if I would have been livid to see my grandmother, even my mom. You know,
But think about it, Doc. Grandma now is 48.
Oh, younger
no,
than
Some
that.
younger than that.
she's emotionally 21, and granddaddy too. A lot of them.
But
They
you
are
know,
they are not. They're trying to. I don't know if it's capture their youth or they missed out. But I'm 63, and I certainly carry myself with the wisdom of a man that's 63. It's things that I've learned. You won't catch me in the club popping bottles and no.
Hey, and you know something, Doc, that we point out all the time. You, me, Miss Sister Wynn, and Ek just pointed it out. Hey, man, not one of us are our friends, our kids' friends. We the parent.
we the parents.
I'm the dad.
That's where I think that's where you have to draw the line early. Stop trying to be your kid's friend.
You're right.
Listen,
Because
listen,
if you don't stop it there, it's gonna grow up, and then you're not gonna have any control where you need to discipline them because they're gonna think, hey, we friends.
Yeah.
You're not my mom, you're my friend.
listen.
you know what?
There's a shift that takes place because I have older kids. I think my kids. I don't think any of you have kids as old as mine. So I got a 41-year-old, a 38-year-old, and a 36-year-old. Okay. And there's a relationship there. They know dad. Well, they remember dad from old dad. Okay. And they know old dad is still in here. But I have matured and changed some ways, but there is still a way that I carry myself where there is an expectation of respect. My kids, they're not going to argue with me or cuss me out because they know. I always tell them, I got two names.
But you ingrained that, Doc. You ingrained that in them. I mean, they understand that. But you know what? As we continue to get to the tail end of this show, we done put out there, and I want to thank Robert Actor and Rodney Daly because they really put some meat on the bone.
Mm-hmm.
But putting meat on the bone is not all that we do. So now here comes the hard part. Okay. And I know Rodney Daly talked about we need to fund those programs again. And Rodney Daly brought up something that we can go back to. Do y'all remember when we used to have these programs that were funded? And then we put our foot on the gas. And these programs will be doing great jobs out there. You can start seeing the numbers. But then when people started talking about juvenile crime going down, this is going down, then that's when people kind of felt, oh, if these are going down, let's take our foot off the pedal. Well, what the hell do you expect to happen when you
pull it back?
Yeah, when you pull it back. But and let's break it down. When you pull it back, what you're doing is cutting these programs. And I'm going to say, here's one thing in particular. Orange County. They do a great job of putting this pot of money that's targeted toward communities that need resources the most.
Yes.
But one of the things they do a terrible job in is looking at past performance. You're doing the scoring for people who are applying to provide services in segments of communities that have provided services in those communities already from the same funder.
Correct.
But you don't take 3 years worth of that organization investing in that community, building trust in that community, navigating relationships, the whole nine. You don't take into consideration past performance. Did you meet your contract goals? Did you serve the number of young people that you say you were going to serve? If you don't take all that into consideration, what good is it from an academic standpoint of submitting your renewal when what you contractually set out to do that you've done and exceeded, if you don't get any incentive or any points for doing it?
Okay, so let's say we got to be real. We got to be realistic about what's actually going on because if we cure, let's say we reduce juvenile crime from its present level down to 0.2% in Orange County. Okay. Let's say right now it's at 15 and we reduce it down to 2. Now, what does that mean? We need fewer mental health workers. We need fewer counselors. We need fewer juvenile detention officers. We need fewer judges in family court. We need fewer social workers.
Okay, so Doc, my turn. My turn.
Okay.
Because when you say fewer, I'm looking at this from a business logic perspective.
Mhm.
Every year, the price of goods go where, Doc?
Up.
Okay, so if we're reducing juvenile delinquency down,
Mhm.
let's not give anybody an excuse to take their foot off the gas. Now, if you're reducing it down, Doc, I'm not going to participate in the and I understand where you're going. I'm not going to make the case for we need less mental health workers, less juvenile probation officers.
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is there's an intentional avoidance of reducing it because you would put people out of work.
I get what you.
That is the case.
And
we need to
see,
keep it that way because once we reduce it,
and
then
think
it goes
about
back
who
up.
think about who holds the majority of those jobs. We've had this conversation in private, and you know what I'm talking about because
But let me throw this to you, Doc. Let me throw this to you. When you look at a juvenile probation officer's caseload, when you look at adult caseload, the ratio is crazy. I know when I was a JPO, and this goes way back, or not a JPO, I was an adult probation officer, my first job out of college. When I did that, man, I had 100 and some people on my caseload. And Doc, you tell me, did I do an effective job of helping 100 and something? No, I didn't.
It ain't got better, Rod. Because when I retired in 2015, I had 84.
So here's my and you can't manage. I mean, when you talk about being effective, you're right, Doc. So here's my point. Because the cost of goods and services go up every year, and come on, I'm a businessman too. Everybody want to raise, right?
Yep.
You know, everybody. So what I'm saying to you is, if we bring juvenile delinquency down, that's not a time to cut positions.
Correct.
That's a time that we can justify and possibly hold positions static because we're bringing the ratio of probation officer to a kid down. But then with mental health, now it's our time to really get more engaged.
In on it.
Oh yeah.
But again, we right back to the same cycle. It's just like with medicine. Ain't no money in the cure.
It's in you're making your money in the treatment, but see, if more people come to realize it's a balance.
Yeah.
It's not a balance if you're Schwab or these other companies. You don't.
I look at it too. If to me, if an organization with the empirical data is showing that they are exceeding, you have done this. Why is it not like an increase or a bonus in that organization that's giving you more money, which you can help more organizations to bring?
You're right. You're right. And I'm glad you went there because this is where I was going with Robert Ector, with Rodney Daly, and Doc. We done put out all of the worst case scenarios out there. So now this is the part of the show, and we got 5 minutes left. Hey, I'm glad we're doing it while we got 5 minutes out.
I think we need to start showing up at 5:30. Shoot, we just get warmed up and we gotta go.
Hey, Doc, and again, you know, things like this that we're doing needs public support. When I say public support, this show, the lights cost money, the air costs money, the production of this show costs. So, you know, and I'm not, you know, my father-in-law is a preacher. It's this old saying, a closed mouth don't get fed. And then he loved to say, you have not because you what? You asked not.
Hey, so we need to get a cash app and ask people to. Put it up there on the screen.
We'll get to that, but Doc, what I want to get to before we close out is all the things that we talked about that we need to get to, more programs. Robert Eckler talked about how do we get that technology, those smartphones out of kids' hands and get them more engaged again. What are the solutions for that? How do we, Eck talked about the club mother, how do we get the club mother more interested in parenting,
But there was something that was mentioned on here that was a good idea. Getting parents more engaged in what their kids are doing. Because
so how do you do it?
I mean, it's like one of the gentlemen said, incentive for parents. It's almost like we always say to some of the organizations or what's in it for them. It's almost like we have to say what's in it for the parent. The parent has to have looking at that mindset as well. What's in it for me?
Well, you still in the thunder because that's what we say at FEC.
Most people only respond to two things: pain or pleasure. That's operant conditioning. So we got to find out what the operant conditioning dynamics is to motivate them. What would motivate parents?
To me, it's just if your kids is involved in an activity, show up. Be supportive.
Be supportive. But you know what? We got to figure it. And Dr. Nelson says this often. It's not this or that. It's this and that.
Yeah.
We got to figure out how do we use the carrot and the stick. Rodney talked about incentives.
Well, let me tell you, if you getting hit with that damn stick, you ain't gonna want to eat no carrot.
But here's the hook, though. Here's the hook, Doc. And I'm gonna use what Daly said and what Eckler said. Daly talked about the incentive. Eck talked about the club mother. So I'm gonna give you the scenario of the carrot and the stick. With that incentive, that's the doggone carrot from a Rodney Daly standpoint. How do we figure out how to use that carrot as the incentive to get those parents to be more engaged, to get your kids involved in some other things? But then for that club mother who's not attentive to their child, who's not accountable for her child, now we use the stick, and that stick being holding that parent accountable for what their child does.
Yeah. We got to do a show about club mothers.
Hey man, I'm not gonna have no Robert Eckler getting us bumped off the air. I'm no. Hey,
hey, you hear me, Queen? We got
and a long ways, and it can make a difference in a child's life.
If we do a show with club mothers, then we'll let Robert Eckler. we'll let him come on to be a special guest, we let him be a special guest, Doc. But we put on a disclaimer ahead of time that we're not responsible for nothing that joker says.
But listen, and thank you guys for giving us your insight. It's very that's what we need. We need a platform where we can all bring ideas out around and talk, because that's what you have to do. You have to show that you're involved, you understand the issue, and you have some feedback. Because none of us are smart enough to do everything. And
but Doc, before we sign off, we got 2 minutes. Before we sign off, I just noticed something very interesting tonight, a different dynamic. Do y'all notice when we have this discussion, we normally have women who chime in.
Yeah.
Tonight we had 2 brothers that took the lead. I mean, and they brought substance to the table.
Yes.
And that's good optics. That is great optics, because a lot of people sit back and say black men are just so absent that they don't care anymore. But what these 2 brothers brought to the table tonight, what is Marie saying, Doc? Put that up there. We got Marie Wilson. Hey, Miss
proactive than reactive. I worked for DJJ for 28 years, Rod. You and Rodney know me. I now volunteer for Take Stock in Children, advocate for children. That and that is, Miss Wilson, you are absolutely right. We often see that in the court. It's heartbreaking to sit there in the court or go to a police station and watch these kids go.
You're right.
They are lost. You could tell that they're overwhelmed, and their little minds and hearts don't know how to they in deep trouble. They
Right.
don't know what to do.
Hey Doc, before we
Like
get
I
to the
said,
end,
yeah.
let me say something about Miss Wilson, because I know Miss Wilson well. She worked for DJJ, and just like I said, Rodney Daly didn't play the radio. Miss Wilson didn't play the radio either. Hey man, these are the kind of dialogue and conversation that we need to have. And for those of you who are tuned into the sit down tonight, we invite you, whether you want to come in the studio or whether you want to get beamed in. These are the kind of discussions and conversations that we got to have the courage to have, but we need to come up with those solutions too. And Rodney Daly, Hector, Miss Wilson, we appreciate what you contributed tonight.
We need to look into getting them on, because one of the things that a lot of people miss, they have a wealth of knowledge that most people never
Right.
get to tap into. Miss Wilson, Mr. Hector, and Rodney
Wilson,
Daly.
yeah.
I guarantee you that they have seen almost every scenario at some time in dealing with juveniles, and they know they've
The
seen
problem is it's undervalued.
Yeah, they've
It's
seen the
undervalued.
parents that you ever worked and seen the parents not come to pick the kid up. I had that happen to me.
Hey, see, I ain't gonna let Doc. Hey, to our viewers, the sit down takes place every Monday from 6 to 6:45. Doc will try to get in. You know, when the show is supposed to be over, I'm not gonna let him do it.
I keep
to
telling him
everybody,
he on the channel so he can get off when he get off.
hey, please tune in every Monday from 6 to 6:45. Bring your contribution. We will welcome you, and Miss Marie, Rodney Daly, Robert Hector. Hey, y'all brought some things to the table tonight that we need to look into and have more of a conversation next week. Please sign in. We got to get ready for Let's Talk Nation at the 7 o'clock hour. But once again, Dr. Light, Sister Wynn, appreciate you. But what I appreciate more tonight is the value that our guest brought to us.
Yes.
Hey, we'll see you next week on the sit down. Thank you for joining us.